good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. And this morning, I'm very pleased to have with me as my guest Ali Alemozafar, who's a partner at Wilson Sonsini. Ali, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me.
So, Ali, I wanted to talk to you about your interesting background. You have a chemical engineering undergrad and a PhD. Tell me a little bit about what interested you in chemical engineering to begin with.
Sure, Richard. When I first went to Cornell for my undergrad, sort of my interests were almost entirely in chemistry. I was just really appreciated the fundamentals of chemistry and just going back a bit more in time. Ever since I was in school, in elementary, in junior high, and high school, I was always a math guy. Math was my favorite topic, actually. So I just really enjoyed math for whatever reason. Just enjoyed it. Took all sorts of math courses, calculus, differential equations, yada yada yada. Also got really interested in physics. But when I was looking for a major, if you will, in school, in undergrad, I wanted something that pushed my limits of, hey, let's really see a growth curve, and I came from a school that, some people, when they come from high school, they have labs, they take lab courses and even OChem and whatnot. My high school didn't have that, really enjoyed the physics and math, but didn't really have a lot of exposure to chemistry, and so I thought chemistry would be a cool thing for me to continue to expand my interest in. Of course, I took math courses and physics too in undergrad at Cornell, but I was initially really set on chemistry. I remember talking to a guy, maybe it was my second year, and he's like, look, to have a future where you could have more options, it may make sense to have a chemical engineering degree, sort of that in a rough sense combines chemistry and perhaps math and physics engineering. It's the scaling of chemical processes is somewhat what chemi is focused on. And I say rough because that's not always true. I took his advice to heart, and then I changed my major to chemical engineering and really appreciate that. Sort of as a with a chemical engineering background, kind of like a chemical engineer. First of all, the very basic principles of chemi is essentially, I can teach you in literally one sentence, which is energy and mass are conserved. That's it. Apart from nuclear reactions, those are kind of like the exception. But and even then, you can make sense out of it. But energy and mass is conserved. That's it. If you can take that and you can apply it everywhere, that's chemi, right? And then you can basically build factories and processes with that. But then how you apply that, of course, you spend years taking courses in terms of how to apply that principle. But of course, chemical engineering really piqued my interest in terms of really scaling life. The magic of life happens within cells or small volumes, and then to scale that to larger systems, that's where engineering comes in. And I really appreciated the teachings that I got at Cornell. It was a wonderful program. I really enjoyed the teachers and professors. And at the same time, I was also taking advanced courses in chemistry, inorganic, organic, physical chemistry. I just really enjoyed pushing the limits there because I also really enjoyed chemistry, just the fundamentals of chemistry at various levels. And so that's roughly my Cornell story there.
What made you decide to pursue a PhD? I mean, you must have really liked it, or was there something else, maybe a mentor or professor that really encouraged you to do the PhD? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to continue to devote myself to learning, and there's a part of me that didn't feel ready to enter the workforce. Back then, this is back in '98. I probably just aged myself. But back in '98, I was looking for various options. I interviewed at Intel, I remember I was looking into Deloitte and Touche, sort of going into business management consulting, and those are, of course, wonderful companies. And I just didn't feel ready, and perhaps it was because maybe there was some sort of fear in terms of entering the workforce, and I just wanted to continue to stay in academia. But for whatever reason, and largely driven by my interest in science and tech, I committed to going to a PhD program. I remember back then I was looking at, there was a short list of schools. I was actually looking into Caltech as well. I actually visited Caltech, beautiful campus, and I met with a professor there, Seinfeld, I recall was the guy's name. He was in sort of really, really big in atmospheric chemistry and atmospheric science. And I really enjoyed his research. And then I visited Stanford and met with a few professors, and one of whom was Bob Maddox, who focused on surface science and catalysis. Just loved it, and ultimately chose Stanford just because I liked the campus. I just really enjoyed the Bay Area, and came to Stanford. And first year was essentially just taking courses, and then you had to do these pre-quals. And I remember sort of the pre-qual was essentially you got handed a paper, a science article, and you had to understand it, and you had to explain it, and you had to provide next steps on it. So it was kind of like hey, what does this teach? What's left to be uncovered, and what do you suggest as next steps? I remember the paper I was given was actually one that I had seen in one of my classes. So it was actually a paper by, this is going to be very vague, but it's someone that I had known. And so I had seen it before, had talked about it in class before, and I asked them to give me another one. So they gave me some other random paper. I don't remember what the exact topic was, but it was something about gas surface reactivity, sort of the mechanics of it in some sort of system. It might have been H2S on some sort of metal surface. But looked at it, spent a week just studying it, doing all the background reading on the sort of the that field, and came up with a presentation and presented it to Bob Maddox and a few other professors back then. And Bob, apparently really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed my the way I explained things. And I remember he asked that I join his group, which I thought was a really nice compliment, because I really thought highly of him. And he was, may he rest in peace. He's passed away. But I thought that he was a wonderful scientist and just a very talented person, very, very, very charismatic. And but when I was looking to find a research team to join, there was another research group that was trying to find ways of generating fuel from the Martian atmosphere. So essentially, Mars is full of various gases that you can ultimately convert to methane to then, as a fuel to combust and to generate power to bring ships back home. So I thought that was cool, and the type of material that they were going to be researching are called perovskites, a certain type of material that can catalyze such processes. And I thought that was cool because it's going to be Mars and space, and I really enjoyed all that. Unfortunately, that research program didn't get the funding that it wanted, so it kind of fizzled. And I kind of went with my tail between my legs to Bob Maddox, and I'm like, "Hey, Bob, will you take me on?" And he said yes. And so he was so generous to, even though he had initially asked for me, and I said no, I actually want to go with this Mars program. He took me back, and that was the start of my PhD research career.
So what did you end up doing your actual PhD thesis on?
Yeah. Well, it was mostly fixing equipment. So I was a mechanic for like 4 years. No, that's a joke. But I did spend a long time fixing stuff. It's just the nature of experimentation and working with ultra high vacuums is these big boxes that essentially have these big pumps, powerful pumps that reduce the pressure down to something that's even a higher vacuum than space. and these are powerful systems, but the one that I was given did not work. It was a brick. The pumping system didn't work. The tool that I was using was called STM, scanning tunneling microscope, which is using quantum mechanics to look at the shadows of atoms on metal surfaces. That didn't work. So I spent a year, just playing around with it and just getting the vacuum to work, getting the STM to work. It actually wasn't a year. It's probably maybe 3-4 months actually, but it kind of felt like a year. It felt like a long time. But I finally got it to work. I finally got it to work on a copper surface. You could see atoms on a copper surface. It was the coolest thing ever that I had ever seen. And one thing I also want to mention is ever since I moved to the States as a kid, my family immigrated to the U.S. Back in the 80s, and ever since I was in school, elementary, junior high, high school, I always loved atoms. I was like, I want to just learn more about atoms. Like, my intro in elementary was per the Bohr model of the atom. It's just the hydrogen atom, and you have these orbits, and that's not accurate, right? But it was the Bohr model of the atom. And I just remember thinking, I just love atoms. I want to learn more about atoms. Every single class I ever took, physics, chemistry, I want to learn more about atoms. So my PhD was looking at atoms. I'm like, that's like poetic justice or something, because I'm looking at atoms on metal surfaces for my PhDs every day, month, years. I'm looking at atoms and molecules. I'm like, wonderful. It was like I was having a field day. I was just like, it was like a kid on Mars. I could literally been on Mars, just jumping around and looking at what's under this rock and that rock. And that's literally what this tool lets you do. Is you can see molecules and atoms moving around in real time. I actually have a paper on that shows how you can use this to see chains of hydrogen atoms moving around. It's actually not the hydrogen. It's actually hydrogen coupled to metal atoms. You can actually see the metal atoms moving around, but you can see that in near real time, and it's like you're looking at a whole different world with this tool. So I spent 3 years, essentially 3 to 3.5 years, looking at different systems, and the research was really aimed at understanding a fundamental question of how do heterogeneous catalysts work? What do they do? You have a copper metal that can catalyze some sort of reaction. Maybe it's conversion of CO to long chain hydrocarbons. Maybe it's the formation of a carbonate or bicarbonate, whatever, right? They're metal surfaces catalyze chemical processes, right? We know that. The catalyst field has known this for a very long time, and they use them frequently. We use them in our cars. Your car has a catalytic converter, assuming it's not if it's your standard combustion based car, it has this box in the exhaust pipe that basically cleans up the junk that the car puts out. How do these things work? What do they do? And how can we use this understanding to design better catalysts? So that was my research, is to further study these types of systems to understand how metal surfaces behave in real time as they facilitate chemical processes. So it had nothing really to do with fundamental chemical engineering. Chemical engineering, the fundamentals are you build factories with various unit operations to extract what you want: distillation columns, scrubbers, separation units, generally reactors. So what I was doing was really fundamental to more like materials, applied physics, physical chemistry. It was really about that. It had nothing per se to do about chemical engineering, even though I was in the chemistry department there.
So after all this research and your love of atoms, what made you decide to go to law school?
Great question. After as I was finishing up my PhD at Stanford, I was also given a postdoc opportunity to be a postdoc at Harvard, the Department of Chemistry, in the lab of Cindy Friend. Wonderful scientist, wonderful person. Just a very nice person generally. And she also knew Bob Maddox and what happened was actually that Bob actually needed me to help move his lab because I was his last PhD student,
Uh-huh.
and Bob needed me to help him move his lab to Harvard. So he was moving his lab to Sydney, France, side of the world, and I helped them move all this equipment to Harvard. And as a nice, wonderful icing on the cake, I got to also be a postdoc at Harvard, just doing some more research for a year. But in this time period, my interest started to deviate from the academic world. I started to just gain a lot of, just this need to want to get out and to express my interests more in the world beyond just academia. And while I loved the research, loved the people I was working with, I wanted to do more or something else. And I was looking into various career options. I remember looking at there was this opportunity to be a research scientist at a catalyst company in New York. I vaguely recall. Option 2 was working at Intel up in Oregon, and option 3 was patents. How I came to option 3 was that when I was at Stanford, I sat on various or attended various panels of experts talking about their careers, and this one panel was a couple of guys, patent lawyers, and they talked about what they did. And I remember one of them saying, I said, look, when you protect inventions with patents, you are initially you're hopefully part of a secret club where no one else knows this invention but you. Hopefully, I say hopefully because sometimes there's the unfortunate public disclosure. But you are part of the secret club to help people protect their inventions. You're being helpful, which I always love being helpful. You get exposed to new cool stuff constantly, and it's a career that's just got a lot of options. So that sounded really cool to me, but I knew nothing about patents. Absolutely 0.00 about patents. I just knew what a patent. I knew that there was a thing called patent, but what is it? What does it do? Nothing. It may as well have been in Greek. But it sounded cool. I just really enjoyed writing about tech, science, and tech, and being helpful and just learning.
I take it you get to use your science background all the time now in your practice.
Exactly. That's right, Richard. Sort of my science brain is constantly active every day, which I really enjoy because I want to stay up to speed on science and tech. But that's what this career at the very beginning did, is I took door number 3. So I joined a patent firm here in San Francisco called Konomi Martins Olson and Bear, kind of similar to Townsend. Is a boutique. It is a boutique, and spent a year writing patents on various things like semiconductor fabrication, chips, chip manufacturing, ALD, CVD, PVD, yada yada yada, and then I chose to then. So I worked at Konomi for a year. I then wanted to gain experience in doing something completely random. So I joined a software startup here in San Francisco in 2006, doing big data analytics and coding on the back end. This is before big data was a thing here in SF, and so this is just down the street here at Townsend and 4th, so right by the train station. Worked there for a year, then went to law school to continue the patent field. I chose to commit to patents because I'm like, look, I really enjoy patents. Software was cool, but I do want to continue to commit myself to becoming a lawyer.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting. So are you pleased with your decision now? You're happy with your career choice?
Absolutely. Never look back. Having become a lawyer, and I always encourage people with science or tech background, science, engineering, or what have you, to if they like doing patents as patent agent type people, to go to law school and to become lawyers. You only get more options. Your career opportunities increase, and for me, I've just been really enjoying every single day of what I do. I at Wilson Sonsini, we're a startup focused firm. We're known for Google, for Apple. We are known for Silicon Valley, and I've really been enjoying working at Wilson specifically. I can't think about working really anywhere else. It's there aren't too many firms like us, and we get exposed to new, just cutting edge ideas constantly. My focus is in the life sciences and a few other areas like deep tech, quantum computing, nuclear fusion, batteries, ways of cleaning up the world. So clean tech / sustainability. These are areas that I focus on. But the life sciences is a very big focus of mine, and our group really has a vision of helping companies that are trying to help humans, whether it's to find better ways of identifying disease, so diagnostics tools, research tools, to ways of treating people with disease, so therapeutics and whatnot. I really enjoy working for such companies because apart from, of course, meeting my own personal need of getting constantly exposed to new ideas, we're also helping people because these companies are aiming to help people live better lives.
Yeah. Well, Ali, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate your taking the time to share it. I loved your story about how you went from PhD to law school, and thanks again for sharing the story.
My pleasure, Richard. Thank you.
This is Richard Hsu and Ali Alemozafar. Thanks.
Thank you.